Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Open Discussion, and we are talking about the deployment of capital and a bunch of other fun stuff. And there's been a little bit of a viral post, I guess, with my guest, and we're going to kind of talk about that. But before we do, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friend Preston Poulter, and he was kind enough to send me a bunch of books like this, and all of them come in my orders that you buy in my eBay store. Wow, I can't speak today. I'm having one of those days where I can't speak. So if you order something from my eBay store, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles, you will get one of these in your order until I run out. And as well as if you go to pocketjackcomics.com, you can sign up for Preston's email list, and he will send you 3 free PDF copies of his book so you can try before you buy. But enough about that, because I have with me Marcel Vann, I think is his name. He might have a different title up there, but I think you're a winner, man. I think you're a winner. So that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, so we're talking about the deployment of capital, but I figured that I'll give you a chance before we get too much into your post, who you are, what you do, all that stuff, so people can get an idea.
Okay, so yeah, my official name is Marcel Vann, but my pen name is Marcel the Loser, and it's that I call myself that because it's only after we've lost everything that we're free to become anything. So a little quote from Fight Club, if you're a fan of that movie. It's basically just a rock bottom mentality. There's nowhere to go but up, and in life in general, not just being a comic creator, there's going to be a lot of adversities that just knock you down, and that's okay. It's all about getting up and trying again, because worst case scenario, all you do is fail. Best case scenario, you're in a better position, winning, living, enjoying, everything that's great about life. So I've been a comic creator since I guess you could say since I was 7 years old. Got inspired by the Captain Underpants book by Dave Pilkey back in 1997. Was reading that book, and then saw George and Harold selling their comics to the kids on the playground. It was like something about that just makes sense. So I started making comics and selling them to kids in class. Did that a little on and off for a couple years. Picked it up real heavy for like a good minute in middle school, then stopped again up until my senior year in high school. And then I picked it back up again, and I've been going strong ever since. So yeah, through my journeys of trying to be a comic creator and just have that be, my profession, that's what I do to get paid. Yeah, I've tried a lot of different things, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different strategies. And within the past, I guess you could say 5-7 years, I've come to the I guess you could say realization, or more so, I've arrived at the idea that there's a lot to be gained for comic creators through the digital landscape, especially particularly through Facebook, but also YouTube, and definitely in the realm of influencer marketing, which brings us to the topic of our video today.
Let's actually talk about this, because I don't disagree. I'm a big social media guy. I like social media. I really like where I'm going with TikTok. Personally, I've obviously taken a step back because I'm actually loading up the horse. Unfortunately, what I've learned is that you have to actually build content first before you can utilize it. It took me a while to figure that out, but I'm obviously taking off all of December for what I do on YouTube, and I'm actually planning out about 90 to 180 days worth of content. And that's what December and half of January is going to look like for me, because this way I can get ahead of it. And what I've also found is that Facebook Reels are really effective. I mean, they're really effective. And I was actually at an event, oddly enough, on Thursday. I was at a G-Shock's 40th anniversary, and I was speaking to certain people, and we were talking about this very topic on Facebook Reels. But I digress. But I do want to dive into what you did, because it made me stop, and it made me reach out to you, because I thought it was so interesting what you put up. And I think you could put your post better than anybody else, what you said. But I don't necessarily agree with the number you threw out there, but I agree with the principle, where I wouldn't pay where you're not. But I'm going to let you explain the post, what you put out there, because I think it's really interesting. And you got a mixed bag of response for it.
That's putting it generously. Yeah.
I'm being polite because I'm in a good mood.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, it was so the post basically said, well, first off, it had the header of hot take, because I knew it was going to be something that a lot of people just weren't going to be able to wrap their heads around. And I knew it was something, it was like when I arrived at the idea for the post, I was kind of just sitting around thinking, what I was doing not too long ago was I was watching a video with I believe his name is JD Calderon on the Talking Comics on a Sunday show that they do. It's a live show that they do on the Indie Comics Explained channel. And they were talking about some guy that spent like almost, I think he mortgaged his house printing a bunch of books. And that's nothing new. I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories of comic creators, or
the whole story of what happened. And we said it was like the 9 creators, right? Because I know JD's been on a bunch, and JD Rosario's been on, and Luke Stone's been on. So I know the whole group. Varian, who is part of that group, has been on. Randy Zimmerman's been on. So I know everybody in that group, and JD's wife has been on my show. So I know that everybody in that group. But continue.
Yeah. So all cool people. They just they've been active a long time. So yeah, they've accumulated some horror stories from all these different creators. And it's not something specific to comic creators. You've heard of plenty of novelists, self-publishing books, and they printed all these books, and now they're just stacks of them around their house. And, they're trying to sell them at conventions or, wherever. But it's like, I was just thinking, I'm like, I wouldn't spend all that money if I had to, like, on printing books at this point. I think you'd be better. I'd rather spend, like, I said $4,000 because that number, typically people are trying to print in large quantities so they can, get the per book price down as much as possible so they can increase their profits.
Offset printing is what you're referring to. Usually about 3,000 copies should run you 25 to $3,000, maybe 3,500.
Right.
I'm not the expert on that, so nobody should quote me on this. But
yeah,
I think that's a fair estimate. If somebody has an objection to it, feel free to object. But that I know why you chose your 4,000 number.
Right. Yeah.
So interrupting.
So yeah, you're fine. Sure. Oh. So it's like, yeah, I just threw out that number because I'm like, I would not spend $4,000 or $3,000 or whatever, excuse me, on printing books at this point, because you can just put a book on Amazon and then they'll print it and ship it, all that for you. I'm like, I'd rather spend $4,000 on some kind of influencer to promote my book. So I was like, I'm gonna put this out in the comic creators group and see what other people think.
Let's actually talk about this because there's a position. So I tried crowdfunding this show for season 3, and I got a lot of bad response to it. And my thought process, where people didn't want to pay for an interview, they didn't want to pay for advertising, people got really pissed about it. And my response back to everybody was saying, you're paying for everything else in comics. Why do you think media is also free? And somebody said, well, there's a lot of shows out there. I said, there's a lot of comics out there, but they're all still charging $20 a pop on average. So why should I not take that same approach? And so I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in comic books. I think that part of what happened with you and your post was hypocrisy. And I also think that where it comes down is that everybody's so accustomed to this old way of doing things that anytime a new idea comes about, that they're like, oh, I'm terrified of that idea. Then they challenge it. So that's part of it. And then also, I think people have forgotten, I'm a big ClickFunnels guy. And Russell Brunson wrote a book about, I forget which one. There's 3 of them in the series. There might be 4 now. But the third one talks about how with traffic, you either buy traffic or you earn traffic.
Yeah.
So there's people, I hate to say this, and it's going to sound really mean on my show, where I don't want to interview you, but for $20, I would like to interview you, where you can buy your way in. Yeah. And there's people who have earned their way in. And I've earned my way in with certain people as well. And people say, hey, how did you get that celebrity or that wrestler or that person on your show? Well, you know what? Sometimes you earn your way in. And I
Mm,
think that's where this also becomes interesting is that if you go out and hire an influencer, to me, what you're doing is that you are buying influence, you're buying your way in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just a different strategy because if somebody can get me in front of 5 million people and it's going to run me $500, what do I care? Because my expectation is to have a 4% rate of return. But
mhm.
I'm also starting with a large number. So, and I'm just using $500 as an easy number to understand. And so that's what I think is missed is that I think people don't want to spend money. I think a lot of people want to earn their way in, and they don't understand that sometimes you have to deploy capital. And then all of a sudden, what if you have something like I have a Redbubble shop. I
Mhm.
don't touch any of my t-shirts, but what would it be? I would pay somebody $1,000 if they were big enough to wear my t-shirt around. I mean, hell, I'd pay somebody maybe even 20,000 if they were performing live at a concert wearing my t-shirt all the time. I
Yeah,
mean, all of a sudden, to me that might make more sense because yeah, sure, I'm going to make my money over time back, but I'm also not handling. So I don't really see why people I think there's a miscommunication on business. I think it's a business problem more than anything else.
yeah, and like you were saying that people are afraid of this new idea. There's a lot of I was talking with like I said I was talking with Tyler earlier this week, and we both agreed that it's just um, a very archaic perspective when it comes to the industry, and that lots of people who are in that comic book creator group are like they're over 21 years old. I think it's safe to say majority of them, and a lot of them are kind of stuck in their ways, and they also just they have their vision, they have their dream, they have their goal. For them, when they were younger, the vision was to make a comic book, um, get it in a store, sell a bunch of books, be a professional comic book creator, right? That was their vision, that was their dream. So now here comes somebody else telling them that their dream is outdated and it just doesn't really make good business sense and there's better
So
ways to go about it. They're going to
challenge
reject that.
I'm going to challenge you slightly on that, where I don't even think it's so much the dream is outdated anymore. I think the dream is still intact. I just think that the question becomes is that actually, no, I'm going to correct my statement. The question that I have for you, and this is where I'm curious about where you think, and I think it's going to lead into my bigger point, is that is your goal to be a comic book creator, or is it to have a comic book that is a profitable asset? Because I think this is where this has become very complicated. So I run an eBay store, and this show in particular is a research arm for a lot of my business. I've gotten business deals because of my show because I know people now. I've gotten into places that have actively affected a business that is going to exceed 100,000 in sales in the next 2 years, potentially even more. And it obviously funds a very fun other side of my life that will more and more make me financially free. I'm becoming more and more financially free every single year. Doesn't mean I'm not free from responsibility. I have more responsibilities now, more than ever before. More
Right.
money means more responsibility. It doesn't mean less if you do it correctly. But my goal has always been to have a profitable business. It's never to be so when I do a comic book, I want a profitable asset. And I think that somewhere along the lines, all of these creators have forgotten that, hey, you're creating something. And if you say, I have 6 grand and it's been my dream to do a comic book and you don't care about money, then who cares if you lose money on it? You should not bitch and whine about it. If it's your dream, you want to do one book a year and that's what you want to do, that's great. But I hear all these people saying, I want to create comic books and I want to do 15 issues a year. Well, that's a business,
Yeah.
but you're not making any money. And so, and this is where I think it gets really interesting with your post is that I don't think that post was coming out of saying it was a business response, saying this is because 4 grand for an influencer is a business decision. And I think that's where this gets messed up is that people don't want to hear the realities of I'm running a business. I'm presuming if you were to spend 4 grand on an influencer, you're not gonna be like, I like you because of your shirt. let's go, right?
Mhm.
I'm assuming and presuming that you're going to be like, you have this many followers, you fit my audience, you're going to do this many posts, it's going to be contractual, and you're going to do your homework on it because you want to sell your book
Right.
with that influence, and you want to obviously sell $4,000 worth or more, or maybe you want to not necessarily even sell $4,000 worth, but get it to its next stage so that it's sufficient, so that it makes economic sense.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong at any point, or if I'm off base, because I don't know this sector as much as you probably do.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong on like all of those are viable options. So it's like if I was to actually legit do this, seek out an influencer, like Gary Vee talks a lot about like people give up on advertising because or making content because they wanted it to do one thing and it ends up doing another, where this other thing could be just as good. You just don't see the value in it yet. So I always like to fall back on the example of Amazon, the one of the most successful companies in the entire universe. They took they ran their business at a loss, and I think they still kind of run their business at a loss for like a long time before they actually started turning profits in, and they had to like write letters to their investors saying like, no, it's going to work out. It's going to work out. We're trying to get market share. It's going to pay off, And a lot of people, especially understandably small business creators, they're not willing to go through that stretch of like just taking a loss and getting market share and building a fan base and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, what you were saying though is true. Where you were saying how it's not so much that the vision, the dream is archaic and outdated. It's just it's outdated if the result you're wanting is financial stability and just for it to be a job that supports you, or at least it's for a very small percentage it's still possible.
So I've had this discussion where I'll use Pat Chan. I don't know if you know who Pat Chan is.
Yeah, but
I love, I
6
love,
as they call them.
yeah. Pat's done stuff for Marvel. He's done stuff for obviously Zenoscope. I love Pat Chan. What
Mm,
I think people say, oh, I want to be like Pat Chan. I think people have forgotten though, and I'm going to call and give a real analysis of Pat here. Pat has a paid gig writing Van Helsing with Zenoscope, so he gets a page right there. Then some other company, like I think he just did something for Big Dog Inc. with Tom Hutchinson. He gets paid for that, but then he does his own stuff with Destiny New York, and then he owns Cheeky Comics, and he does Steamy, and then he does something else that's his own project. And I think everybody's forgotten that Pat, the reason why Pat can support himself in comics is he has his creator-owned stuff, he does a lot of cons, and then he also has a bunch of paid gigs. And so when you break it down in comics, I view Pat's Van Helsing Zenoscope component one gig. I view his own stuff as another. I view if he gets hired by somebody else as a third. Then he does some other writing and maybe does something out in Hollywood. And then it's something like this in New York got optioned. All of a sudden he has 7 gigs.
yeah.
I think where people have forgotten in comics is that, well, you should be like Pat Shand, where you should be that try to get a paid gig somewhere, writing 6 issues and then writing somewhere else, but then do your creator owned stuff. And I think that's where everybody's forgotten, where they're saying, I want to do my own creator stuff. Fuck DC, fuck Marvel, screw them. I don't want to work for them. Why not? If Marvel's going to pay you $75 a page and you're going to get, $2,000 a month, and then you want to do your own stuff, and that gets you up to $5,000, all of a sudden you're making 60,000. That's pretty stable between your career-owned stuff. And that's where I think everybody's forgotten. I think everybody has a messed up, unreasonable expectation in comics right now. And that's why I think your post got a lot of criticism, because you provided an option and a thought process that challenges that updated version. And believe me, I get attacked for it too on certain posts. And I think there's something wrong where I think people, and this is just me maybe pontificating here, but I think people say, I want my book to do $1 million and I want it like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, I think it's just a lack of vocal leaders in the space when it comes to, like, if it wasn't just me saying this, but there were 20 me's saying this, then it'd be like, well, hold on, fellas. Let's see what they have to say. If more people were saying it, they wouldn't feel as empowered to say it's a bad idea. But because everyone's, steadfast on the side of, no, I don't think that's going to work, no one's really, taking the time, except, a very select few. No one's really taking the time to explore these other ideas. Everyone's just creating an echo chamber of, like, yeah, get a comic going, find an artist, get a Kickstarter. That's what you do. You get a Kickstarter, post your link everywhere, and very stale, bland ways. Like, don't look for new ways to innovate and advertise your Kickstarter. Just keep doing what everyone else is doing.
It's funny because, so for the longest time on YouTube, I was just pushing out live content and this, and then I'd republish an interview and be great. When I started cutting up my content and releasing it on YouTube, I went from 336 followers in about 18 months to about 556 followers. So I gained 200 in about 18 months. Now, I'm not thrilled with that. That's not all that impressive. But given that a small change influenced that, and then I started introducing shorts, which also helped. And then obviously I'm doing a lot more micro content. And what I'm finding is that that small change and that slight adjustment and shifting it up and saying, cool, what is working in media right now is a 60-second clip, a 2-minute clip, a 3-minute clip, is really, really driving traffic. And it's very interesting because if I was to just push out content and just keep, I guess, the ship stable, I think eventually I would get to 500 subscribers, 600, 700, 800, but I don't think it would get there the fastest way. And I, think there's a real problem where I think people are terrified. I also think that a lot of people don't necessarily want to learn new skills. And I also think that to some degree, people don't have the money to do it. So my small change costs me time. That's all it costs me in the long run. So spending, 3 hours cutting up an interview every week, it's kind of expensive. And I'm sure that if I had money coming in, I would hire somebody to do that and it would help. But right now I'm doing it myself, but it's working as efficient as humanly possible. But I also understand that if I cut it up once, I don't have to cut it up again. And also, that's just how I feel. But I also think that a lot of people say, look, my book cost me $3,000. I do $5,000 on Kickstarter, and I don't want to start making changes and breaking the formula because I want to keep my 5K. And I think that that's also it too, is that because it is expensive if you fuck up in indie comics, and then all of a sudden you go from doing 5,000 to doing 3,500, and you really need that 5,000 for your book. I think it's a really complicated position. And so, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's just how I feel. I mean, I'm an economic guy, so.
I mean, like, at the heart of everything you're saying is the fundamental skill set of just research, studying the market. Not everyone's really looking to do that at in-depth levels, to where it's like, okay, what's the best outlet for my book? What's the best way to create a book? What's the best way to sell a book? What's the best way to advertise a book? They're, like I said, they're comfortable with just doing what other people are doing. And I don't know why that is. Like you said, it takes time. Time's our greatest resource, no matter what you're doing, a writer or an artist. And lots of people just don't want to dedicate the time to that because, it might take 3 months. It might take 5 months. It might take a whole year for you to understand the market and develop a strategy that fits it and meets the demands of the current market. That's why a lot of people are going through a lot of stress now with Kickstarter, from what I hear. Like, I don't run Kickstarters, but from what I'm seeing, a lot of people are like basically hitting a lot of roadblocks where they're not funding as easily anymore. And
You can talk about that too, because I mean, are you? Let me ask this: are you a consumer of Kickstarter versus running one?
no, I don't really back Kickstarter projects. I don't really.
You're terrible. You're just terrible. How dare you, sir? How dare you? No, I'm a big I'm a moderate consumer of Kickstarters. And I've noticed people who have, I think, decent projects, not great projects, but decent projects. You know, good projects, decent projects, even average projects. Not even asking all that much money. I mean, if you're asking $1,500, that's not a lot of money, all things considering. Hopefully you agree. I think if you're asking 50,000, it's a big difference. I think $50,000 is a lot of money. My point is that I have gotten, like, I've noticed a bunch of people who are just massively struggling. They will fund, but I also noticed that there's been a bunch of projects. Like, I'll use my friend Travis Gibb. His Cthulhu Invades Neverland barely made it across the line. And that book should have been funded in 14 days or less.
I thought Travis was pretty solid when it came to the Kickstarter platform.
I think, I mean, he was asking 30,000, but like that book struggled. And then I read parts of it and I thought it was a decent book. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing yet. I thought the concept was great, but that book, in my opinion, really struggled. And I don't know the reason why. It could be that people are just Kickstarter exhausted. It could be that people are tired of comics. It could be that people are tired of spending money. It could also be that there's just a lot of product out there. I mean, I spent a lot of money, as I was stating before. I mean, for those who don't know, I just went through a business expansion. I spent about $23,000 on comic books, Pop Funkos, baseball cards, other entities for my business. And I mean, a good chunk of that, I mean, part of that was through Kickstarter, but a good chunk of it was outside of Kickstarter. And so there's just a lot of really good product out there right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can drop on a cover level. This cover right here is great by Shikari. And then this right here is great by Mount Olympus. And then you have a million of that out there. And the reason why I bring those two things up is that if I'm spending $30 with Mount Olympus on a book, that means I'm not spending it with somebody else. And so I don't know what your take is, but I think that's part of the issue. I mean, that's just what, because I hate to say it, but if you have 15 areas and all 15 of them are the same and I'm judging them, I have to choose one out of the 15. Well, if I only have $30.
I think so you're more of a consumer of the books than I am. I can't really say. But from what I see, just, looking at the previews that I see like on Twitter or in Facebook groups or whatever, I'm like, the books, they don't really strike me as something that's like, oh, wow, this is a really cool story. And that, like, it's something I want to be a part of. And it's something that's.
So I'll ask you a question and we'll prove a point.
Okay.
I'm going to prove this point. And hopefully I'm not going to be too offensive.
Okay.
Would this make you stop for 5 seconds?
I don't know. Put it a little closer to the screen.
Would this make you stop for 5 seconds at the very least?
Maybe not 5 seconds. Maybe 2.5 though.
you versing something like this. Nothing against my friend Preston's book, but to me, the first book that I showed is going to make me stop and say, "What's this?" Right?
Yeah.
Cool. What do we got here? And then whether I read left or read right, whether I continue to scroll down, but that to me is, and again, tell me to shut up at any point. I'm more than happy to be quiet. But to me, I agree with certain points where I feel Kickstarters aren't being flashy enough. They're not catching me with words, images, getting to the point. Tell me what your book is in 4 sentences or less.
They're trying to be, but everyone's using that same idea. TNA. Everyone's using the same idea. No one's looking to do like, oh, you know what? My books are just going to have amazing logos. Like, the logo for the book is so eye-catching, it's so creative that the logo alone will stop you in your tracks. No one's looking to approach it like that. or maybe just do very intrinsic, very detailed high art covers that will make you stop and look, just because it's something like, wow, I've never seen something like that. Like every now and again, if you're an appreciator of vinyl records, you ever look at vinyl? So
I don't, but I think I know where you're going, but continue.
okay, basically I'm just saying that vinyl records, like the covers, I go back and look at these like shops every once in a while, and you'll see that the cover art was so experimental, like back in the 80s and 70s. It's like, wow, like it was something that would make you, like, it might not even have anything to do with the song, but it's just something so like, huh.
I'll throw something out there. I'll throw an artist out there that's trippy. That'd be cool. I don't know if you know the artist Fuzimo.
Say it again.
Fuzimo.
Maybe if I saw you talking about a music artist or art?
Artist.
Yeah, so, I'd have to think if I saw it.
Fuzimo artwork is just trippy art where you got like a stare on it sideways, and you got like a weird thing going on, and you look at it and you don't even know where to look in the painting and in the lithograph and anything else. And the point is that when you see it, though, 5 people could be in the room and looking at it, and 5 people could have a different reaction because they're all looking at it from a different vantage point. So if you and me are standing at it, you're standing on the right, I'm standing on the left, we're going to see a different picture.
Yeah.
And that to me is also where now you're doing TNA, and it's great. And I like TNA. And look, I get it. TNA sells for my business, right? I built an eBay business. A good chunk of it's based on that. Bad girl art, exclusive bad girl art, because it does sell and it does move. But what I noticed is that there is a position where it gets old, and also I'm slowly backing out because the next 3 to 4 months are a disaster time for eBay anyway. But my point is that all of a sudden, when somebody has something that's trippy, like I back plenty of Kickstarters based on this cover is something I've never seen before. What is this? And I think that that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And I also think that, but it's also the idea that 15 Kickstarters are all the same to me. So it's great. I know person A. The other 14, I know them a little bit, but I know person A more, so I'll back person A. Yeah. And they're all using the same artist anyway, so there you go. It's even crazier. It's just like, and I think just I mean, I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's just not there's nothing. I mean, the reason Common America, what's his name, Tim Lim, right? The reason they do so well is because they have a story that's been ongoing, and it's a movement more than just a Kickstarter at this point. So it's more alluring, it's more attractive because you see this story. You like, even if you like wrote it off 2-3 years ago, it's like, well, they're still popping off. And like, even I have started coming around to like, maybe I actually want to look at these stories and see, like, maybe I should buy volume 1 off of Amazon. Like, it's momentum will take you pretty far, and I don't see a lot of momentum.
Also, isn't with
advertised.
Also, isn't it with Carmen America that it's also not massively expensive as well? And doesn't that help? Because I think like each one's like $10-$12.
Yeah, I think they do have a low price point for the Kickstarter, and then they have a pretty fair price point as well on the resales, like on their websites and stuff.
Because for me, and I don't know how you view it, is that, I mean, obviously, I use a lot of Kickstarters, and I think I backed like 101, 105. But like $25 for a cover A, and I'm like, no, thank you. Like, I was coming across somebody, and I like the people who do it, but it's $27. It's $20 for a cover A. It's like, that's a little out. That's expensive. That's really expensive. A cover A for me should be 15 on the high end. If you're doing 32 pages, it should be $15 for a cover A is really where I'm at. And I think even that's expensive. I think a cover A should be like 12. I really do.
And then, how many pages are these books typically?
I mean, maybe like 28, 32 pages. I mean, I think that though, like 15 is fair. I think when you're looking at $20, to me, because I go to Zenoscope and they could sell me a Paul Green for $20. And that's my issue, is that they're selling me, I know a limited 250 by Paul Green, who's one of the best artists in the world. And I know it's super limited, and you're basically putting it at a company that's been around for 18 years. You're a brand new company that's been around for 2 years. Like, you're putting high end prices when you don't have the high prestige. And I'm not saying you shouldn't charge on a limited, higher end tiers, $30, $40 for like a hollow flow. That's not my problem. But your cover A, if your starting price is $20, like, I think that's part of the problem too, is that I think people have forgotten that you have to get me in the door first and foremost. And maybe I don't want to spend 20, $25 on a brand new project. And I don't want a digital, but like, I kind of want somewhere in the middle, and there's not a $12 option or a $15 option. It's like, because I want to try before I buy, and I feel, and even the digitals are like $12. And I'm like,
it goes back to what you were talking about for your day job. It's about creating accessibility.
It drives me crazy, because it's like, I don't know, like, this is where I think the economics have gotten all jacked up. I do. But I don't know.
My answer has always been to like where my mindset has been is that we're living in a day and age where a lot of media is consumed for free. And so I was like, well, I want to have a comic available for free, but I'd like to also get paid for it, just like other people get paid off of their free content, like on YouTube or Spotify or whatever your streaming service choice is. So I was like, I've started putting my comics on YouTube. Like I noticed a couple years ago, back when I was still trying to mess with Webtoon, and back when I still thought that was a good idea, I was like, I found that there were popular Webtoons just being uploaded to YouTube, where the comic would just scroll slowly upwards with some music, and the video would get like maybe 5 figures and a couple thousand views and stuff. So I'm like, well, yeah, they're getting paid off of that. So that on YouTube, there is no cap for pay like there is on Webtoon. If you get 1 million views on a Webtoon, you will make $1,000. If you get 2 million views on a comic on Webtoon, you will make $1,000. It doesn't change. It's capped right there. Or at least it was back when I was researching it and like all in it. They might have changed it to some point right now, but from what I hear, it's not any better. So, but yeah, the idea was that they capped their pay versus YouTube. If you do 1 million, it's going to bring you a certain amount. And then if you do 2 million, it's going to bring you a greater certain amount. So it just made more sense to start putting my comics on YouTube, where they're more accessible. People can read them for free, and I can also still collect some kind of revenue. And the fact that YouTube has made so many advancements as a platform to kind of double as like a Patreon, so where now you can have memberships. So it's like, if you get a couple chapters ahead of the release, now you can have people paying to be members. You start getting this compounding vehicle beyond the ad revenue, and now you're able to turn your comic that's free and accessible into something that's actually bringing you money without having to be running a Kickstarter every 5 seconds or going to a convention every 5 seconds.
You bring up a really good point, and this is interesting because I have a different view on YouTube collectively, at least for this show. I am looking at building a big library and getting to a theory called critical mass theory, where I just want a lot of content, and I want a lot of my content out there. And I'm not looking to do tens of thousands of views today. I'm looking at this on a much larger collective issue, because I'm going to be doing this for the next 40 years. I'm 30, and maybe not the next 40, but the next 30 at the minimum. So I don't need my content today to do 10,000 views, but I'm looking, saying I put up a video and it naturally gets tagged, analyzed, and I look at hashtags and all sorts of stuff. And all of a sudden, fast forward, you have videos that do 200, 300, 400, 500 views. But what if you have 1,200 of those doing every single year? And I view it now as a library that every video that I put out there is a new asset class that gets developed and has new potential to generate me money. And I view it as a collective. And so when you're putting up a Webtoon or your comic on YouTube, great. Let's say that it's chapter 7 and you have 90 chapters. At some point, though, chapter 7 is going to be long forgotten in the back, but it can still generate you capital. And that's what I think people forget, is that the library effect also is very useful. I have a video that has almost 40,000 views on YouTube. Now, it's not monetized, but every single year it's doing 1,000, 1,500 views, and I didn't touch it. I had a live video that had no tags on it that did 900 plays. And I just legitimately did it, and then I forgot about it for like 2 months, and then I checked it, and I'm like, bam, this thing's almost got 1,000 views. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, snap, and that's how I view it. And so there's plenty of content for my channel like that. And I would imagine that, but again, I think it goes back to that creator set. But why would I want to give something away for free?
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're forgotten that, because I mean, doesn't Gary Vee talk about this, that if you create a lot of content and you break up a lot of content and you just continue to produce a lot of content, and that I think he said something about like producing content for free, you will make more money than anything else.
Jab, jab, right hook, or jab, 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 right hook. The idea that you give a lot of free content and then eventually you come through with the right hook of the offer. So it works. Clearly, if one of the biggest advertising companies, like the spokesperson, is preaching this methodology and has sold, countless books on it, clearly it works. Alex Hormozy. Okay.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He just interviewed Dave Ramsey, I think, like a month ago, and that was a great interview.
He's talked to Ramsey, Buffett. He's talked to a bunch of successful people, and he has found not all of his success, but a lot of his recent success has been attributed to his content strategy for making videos on YouTube and other platforms. So it's giving away for free. Like, I know, again, like talking about Amazon, it's okay to take a loss up front, so long as it's about the long game. You can't be all about short-term results. It's about the long game. Playing the long game will take you so much further. And like talking about your channel, like honestly, dude, like I was looking at it the other day, and
oh boy, I'm gonna get criticized now. Great.
Get criticized. I'm gonna say you have a wondrous opportunity, especially if you're talking about taking a month off to get your video strategy and stuff together. I was looking at, because like I said, I've looked at your videos before. I've looked at your stuff with Tyler last week, after you like asked me to be on your show, and I'm like, I think I've watched his video before, and it's like, yeah.
Who the hell is this kid asking me, right? Like,
no. I was like, yeah, I've watched this stuff before, and I went and looked at your channel. I was like, yeah, I'm familiar with this stuff, and I'm like, as I look at all of your content, and I was like, he's got so many podcasts, these long form content. I was like, but he doesn't do any clips. Like he has some shorts, but he doesn't do clip videos. And I was thinking, I'm like, dude, if he just like took December to like shred all of those interviews and make them interesting, different like short videos, he'd probably scale like 10x, 20x within a couple.
It's funny because I have a lot of that stuff up. I have about 50 shorts. I have a bunch of micro content coming, and all of a sudden, what it is that it just takes time. It just takes time because, unfortunately, in my circumstance, and this is where I think this goes back to creators, is that if you're a comic book person and you work a day job, and your day job is supporting your family, sending your kids to college, and you have to choose between producing content and sending your kids to college. I mean, I'm going to be honest, and this is going to sound messed up to some degree, but I hope people understand, send your kids to college every single time. Make sure your mortgage is covered, because if you don't get to live glory, but you have your house paid for, you have your retirement set, and your kids go to college and they don't have debt and they come out, congratulations, you accomplished something that doesn't sound fun, doesn't sound sexy. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But again, I do my best with shredding up content. It is a tough grind. and it is brutal. And unfortunately, that's where I'm at, and I think a lot of people are in that boat. I think it's very hard to run efficient content the
Yeah.
way, because my YouTube channel has some of that on it, but it doesn't have enough. And that thought process came in March of this year. So that thought process was brand spanking new for me. And even figuring out how to do that. But I agree. And then going forward and backwards at the same time, it is a complicated entity. And so I am beyond sympathetic, because I understand that also people are in rough positions. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you go and do A, B, C, and D when you're already strained? And so, like, I'm extraordinarily sympathetic, but I also understand that, things have to get done and you got to take risks. I mean, I'm into crypto. I take plenty of risks in that sector. I've taken plenty of risks in comics. I mean, I've lost a lot of shit. I mean, for those who don't know, I've lost about $6,000 because of problems in my eBay business and cancellations and people screwing around and people not paying this year. But that's what happens when you scale from doing 30,000 to 90,000 in 9 months. That's exactly what happens.
Doing business, yeah.
And so, but I know people are saying, "Holy shit, you lost $6,000!" Like, because I know for people, $6,000 can be very devastating. I know that it can be brutal where people don't have the ability to lose $6,000. Trust me, I don't have it either. I've had plenty of upsetting days when somebody canceled an order for $500 and you're like, what the hell? Like, so I screamed for like an hour. I've had plenty of those. It's like, why? I sold you this thing. I ordered it for you. Why would you cancel? And then I'm like, just luckily, it's in the privacy of my house. Maybe the neighbors heard me. I don't know, but that's not the point. But yeah, so, but no. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that. But part of my scaling has occurred because of that micro content and that short stuff, and it works. And what's actually working really efficiently is Facebook Reels. People say Facebook is dead. I don't think Facebook is dead at all. I think Facebook is thriving.
You want to hear something funny? So, about, I guess at this point a year ago, or no, let's just go back a year and a half ago, Facebook started this new program called the Facebook Performance Bonus, right? Now, the big thing, especially a lot of comic book people who are against web comics will say, is that you can't get paid for clicks on the internet. You can't get paid off of likes on Twitter. That's not how you make money. You make money off of selling physical books, right? That's been the age-old myth. Facebook starts this new program called the Performance Bonus, where now you will get paid if someone likes, comments, shares, or even clicks your image on your page. So I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I was one of the lucky few who got invited in because it's an invite-only program as of right now. But I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So I started making money off of just posting content on Facebook. And I was like, comic creators, like, more people should do this so they can get paid off for their work. At the time, I was making like $2,000, $3,000 a month on average. So I was like, I went to the same I Create Comics group, said, hey, you can make up to $30,000 a month, because that's what their cap is, $30,000 a month. You can make up to $30,000 a month posting your comics on the Facebook. And I met the same exact energy that's on that hot take post.
So I'm going to challenge you slightly because unfortunately, this is my take on it, right? So if I saw that, my response would be like, this is a scam, right? No, but you have to understand why I say that, because as somebody who's been scammed with that language, my first reaction is that this is a scam, right? And I don't think it's you personally, but it's the language and it's the attitude. So when somebody comes out with that stuff and things like that, it doesn't work. And so like because it seems too good to be true. It seems that this is a scam. It seems like a Ponzi scheme. It seems like you're a feeder. Does that make any sense into this? And so now, whether it's true or it's not true, my reaction will be, oh, you're trying to scam me, or this is a bot, because I've been there. And I think that's part of it. But then when we're now having a conversation about it, right? So I've been in this circumstance where somebody threw something out to me, and I'm like, oh, we had a conversation. My opinion has now changed based on that. And I think that's also part of the problem, is that when somebody, like, because I reached out to you, I'm like, you took a really interesting position. And now if anybody sees this conversation between us, they're going to have a very different interpretation of your post. And that's part of the problem here, in my opinion, is that, great, I'll put something salacious up. People get pissed off about it when I say Bitcoin's going to the moon. Guys, in case you didn't know, in the last month, it had an $11,000 upswing. So Ethereum's also going to do the same thing. People then say, make fun of me. And I'm like, guys, you have to realize, though, that if we have a conversation about this for the next hour, your opinion's going to change. And I think that's part of the problem, too, is that somebody puts something out there and nobody understands the background of the statement, and they don't want to have a conversation about it. I think you and Tyler were speaking about it a little bit, but obviously we spent a lot of time talking about your post. And I don't think anybody who saw your post and sees this can say, oh, now I kind of get where you were coming from. First thing, great, because a post can be interpreted in any which way. I could interpret that $4,000 for an influencer. I don't have $4,000. How am I going to do that? Or $4,000, I'll pay $2,000. Or, oh, this guy's a rich guy, he can afford it, right? Like, I can interpret your post in 15 different ways and interject myself in there. But in a conversation, it's different. And so that's where I think it's, because I think when I read something, I put a lot of my own positions into it. First thing, somebody else. But I mean, the reason why I asked you to be on is that I thought your post was fascinating. I thought it was an interesting thing. Whether I agree or disagree, I thought it was fascinating in a lot of ways. But I think that's where I think that's interesting. But I don't have a problem with being paid. But also, I'll say this, is that if Facebook invited everybody into that program, those numbers would come down.
Which they have over the past year, they've adjusted, to make it, they're trying to make it more sustainable, my guess is. So yeah, as they've invited more people in, the like 100 likes on a post used to do, let's say, $10, just for example, and now 100 likes on a post does like $1. They're just trying to make it more sustainable, because like I have like 120,000 followers, but there are other pages, that have 1 million followers. So it's like they post something out, they get like 10,000 interactions like that. It's like, yeah, it's hard to sustain a program when you have some people they're such high performers. So yeah, it has gone down over time, but I still made like $1,000 last month. And who wouldn't want to make an extra $1,000? Like, nobody would turn their nose up to that, especially if it could be through doing a comic that they very much love and want to make to do and earn money from. It's like, of course they would love to do that. And at this point, it's still very easy to build an audience on Facebook, which again is the number one thing people complain about in that group. I can't get readers from my audience. I came up with a post in that group saying, it's super easy to build an audience. Don't stress about it. Run a $2 Facebook ad boosting your post, and then invite the people who like the post to follow your page. Not everyone's going to follow, but in time, you will begin to build an audience. Because like out of those 20 people that you invite, one will follow. Another 20 that like, one will follow. You will begin to find an audience for your stuff. But nobody wants to do that. $2 to Mark. I'm not giving Zuckerberg $2 a day, or like it costs you what? That's $60 a month. People pay $60 a month on cheeseburgers from McDonald's. Like,
there's a million ways how to do it. There's a million ways how to do it. You can build the lookalike audience, And what you do is that you build it over 90 days, and you get a bunch of people from all the cheap countries, right? And so you get your ad costs down, and then you systematically eliminate them. So your page is going to look initially like you're going to get all these people from South America, Africa, and like the Middle East, right? Because they're like 4 cents an ad cost. The United States is 29 cents. But then what you do is you systematically eliminate South America. You systematically eliminate Africa. And what happens is that, not to sound mean about it, but now what happens is that your ad cost is going to go up, but Facebook is going to average what they got you before. And so now the United States is going to cost you 20 cents a person. So now instead of costing you 29 or 30 cents a person, you're now targeting specific. But what you do is that you still bring in places like Japan, China that are still cheaper, and you keep systematically eliminating until you're down to the US, and now you're down to about 18 cents. So, but I'm still spending 18 cents. Yeah, you're spending 14 cents more, but you're not spending 29 cents. And when you're spending $200 a month or over 90 days, that's the difference between 700 people liking your page versus, 300 people liking your page. And it's the 700 you want who are in the US at an 18 cents cost.
And the beautiful thing about this is you don't have to do it in perpetuity. You only really need like maybe your first 500 followers. Once Facebook understands what kind of page you are and the kind of people who are prone to interacting with your content, their algorithm will suggest your posts to people who may be interested in it. And now you will grow organically. Your stuff will be shown to different users on Facebook organically, and you don't have to run ads no more. You just get that first bit.
And then what you do is that you run, if you're running then when you want to grow your page, and you only run it during the times that your Kickstarters are active, if you're doing 4, because now what you're doing is that you're hitting up a new thing and you put at the top of your page, hey, I got a Kickstarter going on with a really cool image thing live on Kickstarter, because that's a secondary advertisement when somebody likes your page to check it out. And this is how you gamify the system, and it's just built in costs. But nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to spend time doing this, and that's the problem. Nobody wants to spend time understanding, hey, this is how you do it. And obviously what you really want to do, though, is that you want to spend about $10 a month so that you maintain that low ad cost, so Facebook remembers, so that you keep that 18 cents option open. It's sick. It's sick. I mean, it's a game. I have no desire to do this because I'm taking a very different approach. I really, really, really like Facebook Reels. I actually think they're the most effective thing on the planet right now, along with Instagram. And I find that but also my content's interesting. And that's the thing, is when I cut up, the original Nurse Joy and a clip of her doing Nurse Joy for 30 seconds, that thing's going to carry itself. And I would rather just tag it correctly, and I'm not really worrying about it. But again, I mean, technically I should be running Facebook ads. I should be. But I digress. But same thing with TikTok ads, right? Where I just think people don't want to spend money. And that's what I've gotten out of my whole Kickstarter. The amount of hate I got for asking for money was brutal. And that was like 3 years ago. And boy, people hated me. And I'm like, but you're paying for everything else, guys. I found it extremely hypocritical. And I was just like, okay, we're going to run this then. And I'm like, great. I learned a lesson, and I don't need to learn it again. And God bless me. So there you go. If somebody doesn't want to pay, I gave up on that side, but I've become way more of a gatekeeper on this show. Way more. And so, I mean, who wins in that realm, right? I used to be a very open, anybody can come on, and now I'm very selective because I have to be, especially when you're getting top people on your show and top voice actors. I say, your book is interesting, but you're not for me. And it's unfortunate. And it makes me sound like an asshole.
It's business, it's not personal.
Oh, no. Yes, it is. It is very much business, but I hate it because certain people hit me up and I'm just like, I'm not interested. And like, I don't know how to be nice about it, but I say, look, I'm kind of swamped right now. Why don't you hit me up in a few months? And like, but I'm like, your book's not great. And like that's the other thing too. It's just, but I still find your post interesting. And I think you got some justified hate. I do on some degree, but I also think you got some unjustified hate as well.
What makes it justified? Let's look at it. What makes it justified?
No, I think the number was a little salacious. I'll say that because I think maybe not justified hate, but justified questions might be a better way to put it. Where
So
I think
the language of the post is what I would suggest to people to pay attention to. I didn't say it's a good idea to pay an influencer at one time $4,000 to advertise your comic. And like instead of printing books, I said I'd rather pay $4,000 to an influencer instead of paying $4,000 to print books. And I think a lot of people took it as more so it's just a better idea to pay an influencer $4K for a one-time advertisement than it is to pay for that. And I'm like, no, you could pay them $4,000 for what could be a 3-month advertisement campaign, or 4 months, or
I'll throw something out to you. What if somebody let's choose Mr. Beast, right? Let's say Mr. Beast does, what does he do? We'll use Logan Paul. Logan Paul's a better example. I like Logan Paul right now. He's doing a good job in WWE. I find him to be so fascinating to watch. He's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. But let's say that every Logan Paul video does 9 million views, and he was charging you $4,000 at the start of Impulsive to mention your comic book one time. That's in front of 9 million people at the start of it. Done one time and done. So it depends, right? It depends on what that influence deal looks like. It depends on the reach. It depends on a lot of things. Now, I think there's justifiable questions here, and there's justifiable challenges to your post, because I think it's fair to say, hey, look, what are you suggesting? And also saying, cool. I also think people might have interpreted saying, I have $4,000. How do I deploy my $4,000? Because if you say I would rather spend $4,000 on an influencer than print comics, I think people might have interpreted that saying I have $4,000 to do X. What do I do now? Because I still got to deliver books to people. And that's a fair question, saying how do I solve problem B? Because I understand that we're getting a lot of attention here to the project or the comic book, but that's where I think the question started, saying cool, but then you have to look at it versus, the way to look at it would be Amazon printing or another direct to printer that would handle. I don't know who else does it, but Amazon does it, where great, you direct traffic to Amazon out of that, or you have your website and Amazon prints to order it for you, and then you might be making less money per book because they're the middleman, but you're not also spending the money. And so I think there's justifiable questions, because it doesn't solve the issue that, hey, I still need books. And what happens now that I drove all this traffic to it, and now there's 10,000 orders, but I don't have any books. And then you need to solve that issue so that 10,000 order can come in if you drove the traffic. And that's where I think people got really confused, angry, because they're like, I need that other $4,000 to print my book. And now it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, so I was just like for the post, like at no point did I ever say like, oh, you don't get it, or you're stupid, or you're dumb. Anyone who said it, like, responded like within like the first hour or so, because I can't stay on that post forever, got stuff to do. But I would reply, like, if someone, like, let's just pull it up and we can versus trying to make something up. Let me just pull it up, and I can do a quick example of how I was going about it.
You understand, because that's what I thought was going on, because I went through a bunch of it, and I think a lot of people had questions where they're like, but I still need my book to be delivered, where I could drive traffic all day, but if I don't have a product, how do I get it? And those are fair positions to talk about.
So it's like, someone was like, but I need to sell on books. I'm like, or I need to ship books. And I'm like, what you're struggling with is you're holding on too much to the idea that you need a physical product to sell books and make money. You don't need that. Now, if your plan is to go to a convention to sell your books, well, yeah, you need physical books. But if, like, what is the purpose of going to that convention? Is it to make money, or is it that you just want to go to a convention and sell comics? Because if you just want to go to a convention and sell comics, well, then yeah, print books. Like we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about like approaching it like, what kind of outcome are you trying to drive? If you just want to sell books because that's your dream of just making comic books and then selling them to people, like at a convention, cool. If you're talking about making money with your comics and scaling that at a faster rate than you can on doing person-to-person sales.
If you want to make money at a con, what you need to do ultimately is you need to get your book and somebody else's book that works really well, and you need to sell both of them together because Preston's a good example of this. As much as I'm joking about Preston's book, if I had a book and White Lily
was that book available?
What?
Where's that book available again?
Oh yeah, PocketJackComics.com.
No, I'll say this is a good time to plug it again since you're holding it up.
Oh yeah. So you can get this free if you buy something from my eBay store, a comic book from my eBay store at Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. Definitely. I have really good stuff in my store, everybody. So if you're looking for some cool books and rare books and some other stuff, also I'll plug this where I'm the guy who bought this book, all 15 of them in hollow foil. So I bought the whole supply of that book out. So if you're looking for this book, everybody, in the hollow foil, you have to buy it from me directly. But that's all I'm going to say on that. But my point is that Preston has a bunch of variants. So I can buy it wholesale from Preston, and then I can make a 50% markup. And if I'm already going there and Preston's book works with mine, that's how you make real money at a con. I was trying to explain that to somebody, and somebody did not get that at all.
And I have an idea. My strategy right now for conventions is that it's not even about selling books anymore. Conventions, for me, if I go to them, they're about building a compounding vehicle, which would be email list. So I make DIY versions of my books and give them away for free so long as people buy the email list. Now, I don't say the book is free on the table because you want people to actually find value in the book. So once I get them into the table and they're like, wow, this is cool. And I'm like, hey, yo, I'll give it to you for free. All you got to do is sign up for my email list, get you a free book. And I do that with, I'll have like multiple books. So I'm like, if you sign up for my email list, you get a free book. You subscribe to my YouTube where I post my comics online, get you another free book. And then, hey, if you sign up for my Twitter, you got 3 free books. That's the best deal you're going to get. You gain access to an entire universe of everlasting flow of entertainment and content. It doesn't stop today. It's tomorrow and beyond. Like you bring people in, you immerse them into the idea, yada, yada. Point is, it's not a one-time sale. And that's what a lot of creators are missing out on. They're so caught up in trying to sell a book that now you've done sold this book and there goes that person forever. You never see them again. I've sold a bunch of books at conventions. Like I'm over in Atlanta, Georgia, basically. We have MomoCon, AWA out here. I've gone to some big conventions and I've sold out all my books, but it brought me no closer to having a larger following. I would sell these books, tell people, like I go back all the way to MySpace. I say, I'm on MySpace and I got these flyers and I give it to them with the book that they got that they really like and really enjoy. And then nothing changes on the platforms.
It's interesting. I gained a little bit of following because what I started doing is I started handing out buttons. And so I'm doing a panel at a con. And I said, hey, guys, I have a bunch of buttons. I got my business cards. You put your business cards in there. You hand out buttons. And some people are like, oh, this is really cool. Let me wear your button. Let me check this out. Let me, look at your Twitter. Because I would hand out business cards. People would just throw them on the floor. And so now what I'm planning to do is I'm putting my business cards on metal cards. So metal cards are like 69 cents. And if you keep you print like 1,000 of them, you're looking at I think for 1,000, like $250. So it's like dirt cheap in the long run. Nobody's gonna throw out a metal card because metal cards are really collectible. You put like a cool logo on it, and bam, nobody throws out a metal card.
And the material in itself presents the idea of value. It's not something that you just like. It's not a piece of paper. Piece of paper, people automatically think, oh, it only has so much value. A metal card presents the idea that this has some value, and I shouldn't just cast it aside.
And then also what I'm going to do is that I'm going to limit them to 1,000, and then you change it out. So now the business card becomes a collectible. And so now everybody's like, oh, snap, it's limited. You put it limited to 1,000 on it. It becomes a collectible. And people are like, oh, now I understand that this is a collectible and cool. This has all his information on it. And then bam, guess what happens? If you run out of those, you change up the background and then you say, yo, I know a bunch of you have my business card already, but this is the new one. And bam, all of a sudden, and I like the idea that if I'm at a table, you say, yo, I'll hook you up with this metal card if you sign up for my, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I like that idea. I'm going to do that. I'm going to steal that now. I'm going to absolutely steal this.
Hey, I put that idea in the creator group too, and it got crickets. So
you see, it's funny because obviously Preston sent me this stuff for free. Obviously, he put a flyer in it. And
it's on popanimecomics.com, right?
Pop Anime Comic Collectibles on eBay.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's funny because Preston understood immediately. So this book is a $5 book. He sent me like 50 of them. And all of a sudden what happens is that this is in your book, a flyer's in your book. I don't tell any of my clients that I'm throwing an extra book in there. Mike and Mindy Wheeler, who do boobs, did the same thing with certain things. And so all of a sudden, people have QR codes and bam, you open up your package, you just bought a $110 comic and you get 2 free comics in your thing, or you get a digital copy of something, or you get a poker chip, or you get a metal card in there. First, for me, it's good for me for business. Somebody's like, yo, dude, I got some extras in here. Like, what the hell? This is cool. And they didn't expect it. And secondly, Preston now reached an audience that wasn't even on his radar. In which I hate to say this, nothing against Preston, and I don't think he's going to mind me saying it, but somebody buying from me on eBay is not on his radar. It's not on his list. So he's reaching a massive blue ocean audience that he wouldn't be able to touch. And
that's basically what we're talking about right now. You're the influencer in a way, and that's influencer marketing. You are the person who has the influence and the ability to reach an audience beyond Preston. So by him giving you this product, he now gains access to your following, aka customers. It's basically another form of influencer marketing.
I mean, he's also a sponsor as well. And so
affiliate.
No. He's a sponsor of the show too. And then he did that thing on top of it because I presented him. He's like, that's actually a good idea. And when you're sending out 50 to 60 packages a month in comics, and sometimes 90, all of a sudden I'm touching upon 90 people he's not touching, and that he wouldn't even be able to get close because the people that I'm touching will eventually, let's say 10% leads. This cost him nothing to do. This cost him 69 cents at best. So he spent 69 cents and $20 shipping per book. Yeah. I mean, per 50 books. It's a no-brainer for him.
It's a good idea, and it has me thinking. I'm like, it'd have been a great opportunity for someone if they had a quality comic and they linked up with Eric July and said, hey man, I really like what you're doing. I really like everything that's going on with ISOM. I've got my comic. Feel free to check it out. Let me know what you think, or not feel free to check it out, but check it out and let me know what you think. If you'd like to, I'd love to include it with a certain percentage of the amount of books that you sell. Eric July is doing massive numbers. Eric July has access to a huge audience. You could throw in your product, a little teaser comic for a little sugar on the top of whatever he's sending to his customers. Like, partnering with other Kickstarters is probably a really untapped.
People do it on a digital level. They don't do it on a physical level, and that's the problem. And where it comes down to is that you offset print 3,000 books. You keep 15 for yourself. and
Mm-hmm.
then you sprinkle 50 here, 50 there, 50 here. Maybe you throw some to me. I don't know, but it could be useful because again, I'm tapping a non-Kickstarter market, and bam, all of a sudden you've now provided positioning, and also, I mean, hell, why don't you just give some to comic shops to send out for free too while you're at it? Because why not? And again, you're spending a little bit of money, but guess what? It's probably tax deductible because guess what? It's just the cost of business. And now you put that in, and now it offsets your taxes. And congratulations. Believe me, when I have a loss in comics, I offset my taxes. In which that I think this is the problem is that nobody actually thinks about this. I run a business and I'm doing just fine. And hell, look, I could do a better job at everything, right?
Yeah.
You give me 20 ideas just on my YouTube channel, but that's not my main focus. On my eBay business, I'm pulling in 28 to 32% per unit in pure profit. So on 100,000, I'm going to pull in at the low 28,000, on the maximum 32,000 after I pay for all my items, my shipping, my taxes, and every other fee. That 28 at the low end is pure profit, meaning I could do whatever I want without having to worry about anybody biting me in the ass, clawing that back. On the high end, it's about 32,000. Might not sound like a lot of money, but when you invest that money at 10%, and you're 30, you can make a lot of money over the course of the next 35 years because I'm 35. So, in case anybody hasn't realized, there's a good chance in the next 5 years I'm going to be a millionaire.
There you go. It's not about how much money you make. It's about what you do with it.
So, and I don't say that to brag. I say that because I think people have forgotten how to make money and how to actively make money. Where I'm a dividend investor, I legitimately have dividends that pay me every month for doing nothing, and they never complain, and they're the greatest employees ever. They don't ask for sick days. They don't ask for vacation. They don't ask for a raise. they're the greatest employees ever. But like, I think you touched upon something where I just think that all of these creators don't want to spend the money, or they don't even want to think. But like, I threw the idea to Preston. I threw the idea to Mike and Mindy Wheeler, and they were very receptive. But I've thrown this idea to other people, and they're just not receptive.
Well, also you gotta do when we were talking about having empathy for their position, they could just have like people can have a very much tunnel vision, and they're just so set on achieving this one goal that they just are oblivious to the other.
I didn't ask Preston for a book. I say to people, why don't you send me a sticker? Okay, so I start with an item that should cost somebody 7 to 8 cents, because I say, why don't you throw me a sticker and print a flyer for me with a QR code? And people can't even get there. We're talking 10 cents. That's going to run you $15 shipping for 50. And I'm saying, look, this is going to last 2 months. And if you get a 10% rate of return, you just spend $15. But guess what? It benefits me, it benefits you. We're all freaking happy. And I say to people too, I say, look, if you have excess Kickstarter stuff, let's start there. And why don't you send me even 20 things? And people can't even conceptualize that. So like Mike and Mindy Wheeler had excess stuff from their Kickstarter, right? So it didn't even cost them much money in reality. I mean, Preston, he had probably a bunch of stock anyway, but of that book, and it's a good book, and it's great for me, it's great for Preston, it's great for everybody. But what if you ran a Kickstarter and you had 500 excess stickers, and I said to you, hey, do you want to do this? And you got a QR code. Would you like to send me 50 stickers that I can include in my packages? That's not going to cost you a penny. In reality, it's all paid for. And people can't even get past that.
Yeah.
And that's where the business mentality, I think, is lost, because I think people have forgotten that we're tapping into something that you don't have access to. In particular, where you have access to this ecosphere, my ecosphere is not on Kickstarter, and now you give them a QR code that brings you to their Kickstarter or one of your Kickstarter pages or your website. Like, you just hit something, and great.
So here's a good question for you, because I was talking to Tyler about this. Lots of people can say there's a problem, but what do you think the solution is? What's it going to take for creators, for it to click with majority of creators that these strategies and ideas are good ideas, they have value and should be pursued more often.
Two things. So I'll answer my, I guess, influencer position on eBay first. I think once you get one or two or three or four, it's easier to say, hey, I got Preston on board. This is what he offered, and this is what he's seen. So I think once I break one or two or three, because this is how interviewing works. So I'll tell a story. I'm a big Digimon fan. So I got to interview Jeff Nimoy because I interviewed every person he's worked with. And then finally, when he reached out to me, he said to me, I wouldn't normally come on your show, but you've interviewed all my friends. I had to come on. And so all of a sudden, what happens with people is sometimes you get lucky and somebody's like, yeah, man, I'm happy to come on. Let's do it. Yeah, thanks for asking. I haven't been asked in like 6 months. I'm happy to come on. And then somebody says, dude, I interviewed person A, B, C, and D. And dude, these are all my friends. Like, why didn't you hit me up, man? Like, yeah, man, I don't want to be left out of the club. So I think sometimes that's the answer where, great, it works with one or two people. And they're like, oh, I see this. So I was at that G-Shock event and somebody gave me an idea or two, and then I gave him an idea. He's like, dude, that's working. And all these people, you know, two or three people followed me on Instagram from this event, and I got a bunch of ideas saying, wait a second, they're doing A, B, C, and D, and it clicked in my head even further. And that's why I'm now shifting up my content a little bit and planning to build it out. So obviously I've had an awakening because I've seen other things and I've seen ideas work in my world. But for creators, I think with even just influence or doing micro content or shorts or other things, I think, you know, I'm trying to think of it. I think that they need to see somebody it work really well for them. I think they also need to see it being that, oh, this person started, it only cost them X amount of money and that it's not that hard to do it. And I think that's what happens. And also, you know what is, maybe you need to bottom out as a creator and be broke. Maybe you need to have such a catastrophic failure that you say, what did I do wrong and what would solve the problem? And maybe that's also it too, because if you're doing 6,000 and you do 6,500 and you do 7,000 and you're climbing up slowly, you're not in much pain. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, but when I'm in pain, it makes me change. And I think that's also the issue, is that I think people are bitching and complaining, but I don't think they're in pain. I think they're just whining. And I think that's the problem, is that I think if somebody had a Kickstarter where they spent 20,000, they didn't make any money at 20,000 and they only made 16,000, but their asking price was 10, they had a successful Kickstarter. You did 6,000 over, but you needed to do 20 to make money. And then you say what went wrong. And then I've noticed a few people changing after they had a catastrophic failure and they probably lost $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 on there. And now they're starting to change because they realize that they can't repeat the same mistake. I mean, and I think that sometimes happens. So I think that's part of it. I mean, I did so, but also I think, you know what is, I think there's a new generation coming up. And I think a new generation is figuring out. I mean, look, I'm on TikTok. I do good on TikTok with my micro content. I mean, I've just taken legitimately like 2.5 months off because you got to build this stuff out. It doesn't just get developed. But I've had TikToks that have done 5,000, but my average TikTok does 3, 4, 5,000. You know, not 3, 4, but 3, 4, 500 views. And given that I don't advertise my TikTok, I mean. And so for me, I'm going to continue that strategy because it works. And so like that's just, I don't know if that's an answer, but that's my take. But I think that there is a new generation coming up, but I also think that certain people just don't get it. And I don't know how to breach it, but I'll reach out to for my eBay thing and even interviews. I just knock on a lot of doors. And I think that's what it is. So if I wanted to have 13 comics in every single one of my packages, I would reach out to 500 comic creators and throw a suggestion. But it would be bad to have 13 comics in each one of my packages. It's too much.
Yeah.
Saying, look, I would love a sticker from you, and I know you have a bunch of them. Do you want to enter some partnership? Well, here's what I'm suggesting. Because having a sticker, having a metal card, having a comic, and having a poker chip in each one of my packages, and then having my metal card in there, that's a superstar package for somebody. And that's good for me on a business level. And I don't charge for my influencer. If you give me product, I take a different approach too, is that I'm not charging you because you're sending me merch, but that's the exchange. And also eventually though, I might charge for that service, but I'm testing the market first, because if all of a sudden I'm sending out 150 packages every single month, or 200 or 300, because I'm coming to Whatnot eventually, and if every week I'm selling 120 packages,
Mm.
yeah, I'm gonna charge, because I'm gonna say, look, I have a pretty big influence, and when I put this on Whatnot and we got 5,000 people watching, 5,000 people know your book now. So, but I think that's just my take, but I don't know if that's an answer.
No, that's an answer. Basically, there need to be industry leaders that other people, like, they need to be a beacon that other people can, like, oh, okay, so these people are doing this, and I don't.
I also think that the other thing too is that people in comics, they talk to other comic creators, but they don't talk to somebody like me. I'm not a comic creator. I run a comic business, I run a podcast, but very few people have me on their comic show. But I'm selling 90 to $100,000 worth of books. And the fact that I'm not part of the conversation is a problem, because let's table creation for a few seconds and let's talk about selling books. Let's talk about pop culture. I mean, I was at an event, as I stated a few times, at G-Shock. G-Shock cuts across a lot of culture. It was a culture event. And I think that's the problem, is that they have a Dragon Ball Z watch, they have a League of Legends watch, and then they have a Coca-Cola watch. I mean, they just had a collaboration with Coca-Cola. So, like, the soda company. So my point is that I think that there is a problem where I think a bunch of people are actually left out of conversations on how to run this stuff. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that a bunch of people, if you want to run a business, you should have a team behind you. You should have a council, where you should have somebody who is a pure podcaster, somebody who sells purely on the internet, or a comic shop. And I think a lot of those people have gotten out of the system because, and that I think a bunch of people, I mean, I see it all the time. Let's boost each other's Kickstarters up on Thursday night. But, like, let's actually talk about something beyond that. Let's actually talk to a comic shop and say, what's your biggest problem right now in your shop, and what terrifies you and keeps you up at night? What about me? It's like, what's your biggest issue on eBay? And those conversations don't occur, and I don't get invited on shows. And that's what I see is also part of the problem, is that the bubble is very exclusive, and it's very much comic people talking to comic people, and not anybody outside of that.
And yeah, that's definitely gonna, like I said, contribute to that echo chamber effect that you run into a lot. And all the ideas that I've had when it comes to doing online anything didn't come from comic book people. It came from Gary Vee or Alex Hormozy, or some random affiliate marketing video, or I remember I got some really good advice from a friend I had on my podcast. He's a content creator where he mostly just promotes products. And he helped me find a way to leverage some of my brand to bring me in an extra couple grand a year through affiliate marketing with Amazon. So it's you can gain so much knowledge and wisdom the more you diversify the kinds of people you're talking to. You wouldn't just put a bunch of apples into your blender looking to get something.
One of the best things,
apples, oranges, bananas, gotta mix it up.
One of the best things is that, and this is going to sound weird, I have gotten better financial advice from porn stars than I've gotten from anybody in comic books. You laugh, and it's funny, but think about it, right? A lot of them run ManyVids, they run clips for sales, they run OnlyFans, and it's a big deal. And if you have real conversations with them, for those who don't know, if your OnlyFans gets shut down and you have 50 grand in there, OnlyFans keeps it.
Yeesh.
So at the end of the month, or if somebody just did 50,000 on OnlyFans, there are times that you cash out and there are times that you don't cash out. So if you have a grand in there, it's probably not advantageous to cash it out. But if you have 15,000, you might want to cash it out when it comes in. And if you know that 70% of your subscribers come in on the 17th, they renewed their contracts on OnlyFans, and then they plan, a bunch of these people plan their lives and their lifestyles around that. And then they look at things like clips for sales and ManyVids, which is passive. And then what do you do about building out your studio, building out your content, building out how you're going to shoot? And then what do you do with the rest of the money? And then what do you buy and what do you don't buy? And it's very complicated. It's very complicated. And I've gotten better advice from them than anybody in comics. I've gotten better business advice. And people laugh when I say that.
Hey, look, I'm laughing, but at the same time, for years, as soon as I learned the stat that I think it was like, I forget the actual number, but it's something wild, like maybe over 50% of internet traffic is porn related. I was like, the porn industry is probably the most untapped, like, advertising business out there. Like, it is dead ass a plan of mine to, when I start using influencers, that a porn star will be involved. Because I'll tell you this, I don't want to assume you watch porn, but let's just say let's just indulge me for a second.
This is a Christian show. How dare you? How dare you assume I sin? No.
F word, son. I don't want to hear zippity lip from you. Now, if you're watching a pornography video,
an adult video,
you're looking at this chick take back shots because it's POV, right? You want to feel like it's you, like you want to indulge, you want to live the dream, and you're looking. She's wearing a t-shirt. She's not completely naked. She's wearing a t-shirt. On the back of her shirt is prime real estate for any brand.
Oh no, that's not what you do. You got to put a poster on the wall. You got to get a t-shirt. You got to get a tattoo.
That whole room is prime real estate.
I mean, if I was to build a watch company, you put it on a bunch of porn stars, and there you go. It's not hard.
No, there's this video of this chick. She's always doming up these dudes, and she always has these really nice watches on while she's doing it. Like, yo, those are some not like this is
no. You don't have her having the watch, and you have the guy on the watch. This way, you could be the guy.
That's you. Like I said, there's a lot. Like I said, very much untapped potential there. It's in like because of course you think, well, it's porn. Who wants to be associated with that? And then you realize just how much.
Oh my God. You're giving me so many ideas. You're giving me so many ideas, and I am not going to tell them to you online. But when I do, you're going to steal half of them, and you could have them because I'm going to do it too.
These been my ideas. If you're talking about anything I'm going to do, these been my ideas. So you're stealing my ideas. I'm the one helping. I'm the one upskilling you right now. Okay.
This is great. You're not wrong. That's what's great. I mean, I'm surprised Coca-Cola hasn't been like, they have their little bottle there. They just keep it nonchalant. And
especially a big brand like that, because it's real easy to say, oh, we didn't actually, pay for that. We're just such a big brand. She's really into Coca-Cola. We can't help that.
We didn't find it worth our while to go after them. But I get made fun of when I make this statement, but I'm like, this is where I'm at, is that, I get made fun of on my predictions of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I'm like, guys, like, this is where we're going. Like, I had a whole thing about AI that people shat on me for that, and I'm like, but if you don't adapt to it, you're going to get slaughtered. Like, and this is why, the whole comic industry is that I find that there's a lot of creative people. There's a lot of smart people in comics, but there's also a lot of people who are not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Is a good way to put it, I guess. And I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to say something that's not offensive. But like, I look at this and I'm like, this is gonna fail. I used to say, I don't understand why people are broke in America. And now I don't ask this question anymore. For two reasons. A, I understand how to spend a lot of money really quickly. And I understand how to service debt. And I also understand I'm sympathetic to understanding how people lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
and how things go south. I'm very sympathetic. But I also say there's also lack of education, and
Yeah.
there's lack of wanting to learn. Like, I manage my money efficiently. Like, I am a hawk with my money, and I protect my money like nobody knows. I'm very, very active in the stock market, so maybe I'm biased, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, I used to ask the question, and now I know the answer. And I think it comes back to even how people reacted to your post. I was like, you got a point. I mean, that was the whole thing with your post. I'm like, this is interesting. I don't know if he's gonna want to come on, because also, and I'll say this, and I respect you for it, is that you wanted to discuss it, because I think that's part of the problem too, is that nobody wants to discuss ideas. I mean, I'll put it this way: right now, I don't want my brand in a porno. No offense. It's not something that I'm ready to do for a
Right.
lot of reasons. I'm just not ready for
Very
it.
understandable.
I don't think it's. I'm not against somebody else doing it. For me, it's not where I want to be. It's
Uh-huh.
not. I'm not against it. I'll interview an adult star. I'll have a lovely conversation. I find those to be fun, but I'm not interested in having pop anime comics or conversations in pop culture there yet. Maybe in a year I will be, but right now I'm not there as an idea. I
Um,
also don't think that I'm ready to go do that and deal with the backlash of it, or
right.
what that even looks like. But if somebody else wants to go do that, more power to you.
Yeah.
If that's your brand, that's your idea, that's your position, hey, I'm all for you. That's your call, and you should go do it. Um, but like that's kind of just where I'm at, is that. But I but I'm glad you wanted to defend, because I think that's the other thing too, where I was going with it, is that you wanted to actually talk about your idea, because plenty of people put their ideas out online, and then I said, cool, let's talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I think that's a big problem in
Does that
comedy.
happen a lot where you like invite people to further the conversation and they say no?
I would say 50% of the time people don't show up, or they don't want to talk about issues, or they don't want to tackle things. And the whole point of this show, Open Discussion, is that is to have an open discussion about things. And I mean, last night I was talking to Nandor Fox and Ben Dunn about, how to save comic shops. And I think there is real discussion, and it was an interesting conversation, where how do we save comics and comic shops? And that's a real issue, because everybody has a different opinion on it. And my basic theory is that if Marvel and DC fail in a comic shop, that comic shop's going out of business.
Mm.
And I don't want a comic shop to go out of business because your indie book then doesn't come into that shop. It doesn't even have a chance. If the big two don't make it, and the industry doesn't step up and doesn't get their books in there, or fill the vacuum with good product or distribution, great, that shop closes and small business fails. And that's not what I want to happen. And so there you go.
I wish I was on that video. I'd love to throw out my ideas for how to have a better comic book store. I would just say, if next time you talk to a comic book shop owner, tell them like, hey, when's the last time you walked in like what's the name of that store? It's a beauty supply store. I go there with my girlfriend, or not with her. I'm dragged there by my girlfriend.
Ulta.
Oh, my man. So walk into a comic book store and then walk into an Ulta, and you tell me which place has a better presentation for their products. The way they feature these different brands of makeup.
I'll one up you. I'll one up you on that one.
What?
Walk into Ulta, walk into Lego.
Lego? Yeah.
No, seriously. You walk into a Lego store, the first thing you get is you see something that makes you smile.
Yeah.
That is the first thing you see in a Lego store. Every single Lego store is like that. Same thing with Apple. You walk into Apple, Ulta, and Lego. You walk into a comic shop. Tell me which is the one that doesn't fit. It is the game, right?
Which one is not servicing the customer at the optimum level, And it's like, I just remember while I was waiting for her to shop around the store, and I was just kind of walking around looking at the different ways they were, just looking at the store from a business advertising perspective. I'm like, I don't want makeup, but if I was going to buy makeup, this is exactly how I would want it being sold to me. And I was like, it'd be amazing if they were selling comic books like this, making them seem like such prestige items that you want to, own and purchase and be a part of. And it's like it's just, and it's so lit in there. It's so, everything's so visible and
If, if you go, I haven't been to an Ulta, so I can't speak, but I would imagine that I'll take your word for it because I've passed by it, and it looks like a fun place to be if you're a woman. I'll say it that way. Hey, it could be a fun place for a man too. I'm not a discriminating.
That's what you're into, yeah.
I'm all for whatever you're into, everybody.
Right.
But I walk into Apple. Every time I walk into Apple, the store for my Mac, I feel treated like a customer. I feel valuable, whether I'm getting my Mac checked out or, God forbid, there's a problem, or I just bought my Mac about a year ago. I bought a brand new Mac. I felt really good about it. I felt that I was being taken care of, and it was wonderful. I mean, I spent $3,000. It was financed. It was great. The point is that I felt good about my purchase. And then when I walk into Lego, I feel good because what is out there is usually a big Lego figure that they built. And it's the first thing I see, or it's something Christmassy, or it's some like cool Lego thing. And I feel really good about it. And it's optimal. It's yellow. It's bright in there. But I walk into a comic shop. Sometimes it's all musky and dark in there. And it's just like, am I being really put into the best mood? Because when I'm happy, I spend more money.
Right.
Just by nature, I spend more money, and that's whenever I'm trying to sell somebody live, I want to get them happy. I want to get people happy very quickly, because when people are happy, when you put pressure on people, they operate at a lower rate, and people operate at a 32 to 36% higher rate when they're happy. When you're negotiating, the best thing to do is to make somebody happy, because it will make the negotiation go faster. And if you're in there in positive mood, it will make it go faster, and it will work better in your favor.
And that's the irony of this whole thing is, when I was in Ulta, they had comic book related makeup in there. They had like Naruto and Demon Slayer. They had anime stuff. I'm like, they showcasing it better in here than they would at the comic book store. I'm like, this is insane. I'm like, wow. But
have you been?
Huh?
So have you been to a Newberry Comics?
Newberry, no. But hold on real quick, because I need to get attached to my charge cord.
Oh yeah, take your time.
Die. But Newberry Comics, where is that?
They might be all across the northern east side of America, so they might not be down in the South, Atlanta, Georgia, but they have like, I think like maybe 45, 50 locations all on the East Coast, and what it is that they sell vinyls, they sell manga, they sell Pop Funkos, they sell comics, they sell cards, they sell T-shirts, they sell mugs, they sell everything, right? So it's kind of like, it's not a comic store, but it is a comic store to some degree. And so what they do is that they're selling a little bit of everything, but it's brightly lit, it's well done, they have signs up, and it's a great place. And so it's just one of those things where I just think that they do a fantastic job because they highlight things correctly. And when I went to Newberry, it's a little expensive with cards and stuff, so I don't really want to buy cards from them. But beyond that, they do a great job of advertising and pushing things out and handling things. And so, like, I think, again, it goes back to the whole issue is that maybe things aren't advertised right. I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, it's just a lack of understanding for the customer's needs. Like I said, not a lot of time is taken across the industry for simple research and just studying the market. And people are just saying, well, this is how they did it back in the 90s or in the early 2000s. And like they're subscribing to only one or two or three ways of doing it, when in reality there's 4, 5, 6, 7,
Do
8, 9,
you
10.
also think though that there is this idea where I mean, we mentioned Eric July. I think Eric July is a 1 in 5 year or 1 in 10 year player, meaning that he's an anomaly and he obviously brought in his audience. And I think what he did is, I don't think what he did was comic oriented. I think his product's a comic, and I think he's the driver. So I think he's the engine, and the comic is the wheels on the car. And it sounds a little weird when you say it that way, but Eric July had a following on the Blaze. He had a music thing. He had a big audience that he built from scratch. But I think people look at Eric July and say, I could be Eric July, but they haven't put in the effort to build Eric July. So if all of a sudden, fast forward 10 years from now, I have 40,000 subscribers on YouTube and I launch a comic, my results are going to be very different than somebody who doesn't have that. They don't have the driving force. But I think everybody's forgotten where they see Eric July, they say, oh, he's doing that. They criticize him to some degree. But I also think they don't realize that, look, it took him a while to get here. And I think we're almost in generation me now, generation now. It is in generation me and generation now. And I think that's part of the problem too, is that, you know, we're in an era where we're not accurately judging something. So I don't say that Eric July didn't earn his money. I think he earned all of his money, whether, you know, ISOM or OSOM or whatever it is good or bad. He earned every dollar on that. It just took 10 years, and people don't realize it took 10 years to get that.
I wouldn't argue so much he's an anomaly, though. I would just say he's doing something that other people in the comic industry aren't doing. And like, because basically that was influencer marketing, right? This Eric July is the influencer. He built up a huge audience, and he was able to sell a product to them. Other comic creators, or not comic creators, content creators have had comic books or just books or other kind of products to sell, and they sold them as.
Let's look at it like this. So I'll admit something. I just bought something that I might get made fun of. Kendall Jenner has a tequila, 818 tequila, and I just bought that. Okay, I have no problem admitting. Why are you looking at me like that, like judging me? It's
well, I watch the Kardashians, and I watch them not like, because it's like, oh, the Kardashians. It's like, yo, these are some slick business people, like business, like they know what they're doing.
My point that I'm getting at here is that I bought it because it was hers, and I wanted to try it, and it's okay. I mean, it's good. It's not the greatest tequila I ever had. It's not bad. It's a good tequila. But my point is that it definitely is influencer marketing, right? If that wasn't her tequila, I wouldn't give a damn about it, right? No offense, because it's her tequila. I'm not a tequila drinker. That thing will last me 5 to 10 years. When somebody comes over, you know, and they want tequila, one of my friends or somebody special in my life wants tequila and she wants tequila, fine. But that thing will last a while. But I bought it because it's hers. But that was an influencer play. Versus Jack Daniels, I'm going to drink Jack straight anyway. So if all of a sudden, you know, John Cena is sipping some Jack Daniels and he's in a commercial for Jack Daniels, that's going to have no influence on me. There's a difference between those two things, where the influencer of John Cena says, I'm already buying the product, has no influence on me. Or Jack Daniels being a sponsor of McLaren has no influence on me. But if you're a McLaren fan and then you weren't into Jack, that might have an influence or effect on you. So it's interesting.
And you know, I had a podcast a little while ago, and I was talking with the guy because he was a content creator, and we got on the topic of Eric July and ISOM and the Rippaverse. And I was saying, if someone wanted to duplicate that, it's not even necessarily you've got to wait like 10 years to build an audience or something. All you got to do is flick what this whole conversation was centered around. Find you an influencer that you like, and do what all these other businesses do, and create a brand ambassador. They will be your megaphone to an audience that lines up with comics. And then it's like you get them to advertise the product as if it was theirs. Hell, to make them feel better. Maybe even on the book say, like it's Spider-Man, but it's presented by Andrew the Investor Davis, right? Andrew the Investor Davis presents my comic, So that's a real easy way to sort of just do your shortcut if you are looking for what you say, generation me, generation now, like you're looking for an immediate result. All you got to do is hijack another influencer, create a content strategy to help prime their audience that's already sort of into comics and stuff, prime their audience for this release, and then boom, you'll do not the exact same numbers as Iceland, but something similar in the vein.
Depending on the influencer, yes.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, but also I do think though that it gets tricky because you also need to understand expectations and your numbers as well. Where somebody like we use Jessica Nigeri, where I don't know how rich her influencer blood is, because what I've noticed, especially with cosplayers in particular, and this might not be the best example, is that blood has actually thinned out. And their influencer blood has thinned out tremendously. And what's crazy is that Hot Topic used to want to work with people who have $1 million following on Instagram. Now they're really targeting people who have less than 25,000, because what happened is that they've done statistical analysis and they've realized that, hey, Jessica Nigeri only has a 2% retention rate. And sure, she's got 4 million people, but this other person who's 25,000 has a 10% retention. And so there's more engagement. And so they would rather have the higher engagement number than the lower engagement number with a larger number. So they would rather have, 2,500 people interacting with a post than having, of somebody who has 15,000 versus having somebody who has 4 million and having 200,000 people, because it's a better rate of return. And they, like Hot Topic, feels that, and other companies feel that, hey, this is going to actually equal more money. And it's a weird thing because they find that lower number is a better fan rate of return and a better ROI.
And you'll find all those stats out through doing research, communicating with these influencers, getting their media kits where they have all that data available for you, and then you can make the best decision for you and your brand. But yeah, I'm like, it's easy to replicate it. People get so mad at him, and he's not even the first content creator to make a comic. Like Mastar Media had a manga out before him. It just he's not in the comic creator space, so people weren't paying him any mind. Same with the God Slap comic, that came out. I think that was done by Most Critical or something like that. So
I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, there's I forgot the guy who does all the wrestling stuff, but he's done stuff with Jerry Lawler. He's done stuff with, I think, Sandman. He's done stuff with a bunch of people. It's not new, any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's. I just think that it's easy to hate, because I think that people don't want him to be successful, because I think a bunch of people say, if I'm not doing $2 million, then what? And he's doing $2 million, and I've been doing this for 10 years. He shouldn't be able to do it, and I want to tear him down. And I don't really get that. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't really get that idea. Why don't you want to compete versus tearing somebody down? And I think that that's also the problem too, is that this community, I don't know how you feel about it, and I'm an outsider looking in, but people want to tear down more than they want to build.
Yeah, I mean, I only go into the comic creator group. Like, I go in there knowing a certain very much a high level of skepticism, pushback, and just not positivity. Because look, people could have saw that post and be like, okay, that's weird, but that's interesting. Why do you, like how you said, like, this is interesting. Why do you think this is possible? Why do you think this is a good idea? They could have explored the idea versus dismissing it.
Also, I'm a mature individual. As I was stating, I'm a mature individual where I'm not going to beat the shit out of you and stab you and set you up. I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain your side, where I'm going to give you a reasonable platform to explain your position. We're going to talk about it. Other people can't do that. And I know other people can't do that. I don't know if you've been on a show where people have not given you an opportunity to explain your side.
No, I haven't been on that many shows. I kind of want to, we were talking about, I kind of want to be on Talking Comics on a Sunday just because, but I don't ever do Kickstarters, so I can't promote any Kickstarters. So.
I would love to be on their show too, but and JD's been on my show. JD Rosario's been on my show, but like honestly, it's not even a Kickstarter thing. I think I have a very different viewpoint because they say talking comic business, and like my position is that like I don't see them talking about it. I really don't see them talking about any of this.
Yeah, just like you're saying, I feel like I have a different voice that would help provide perspective and just get interesting conversations going. And like, so that's why I would like to be on. But I mean, I haven't been on really other shows.
It's funny in which I don't get on shows and I talk about things from a business side and a consumer side, right? So when I'm buying a book to resell it in my eBay store, that is a very different discussion than somebody running a Kickstarter. And I think though it does provide a really, really different viewpoint. And I think it's very important. And I don't think people fully understand what it means to go through a 3x expansion and then some in 9 months. I don't think people have a clue what that looks like and how to do it relatively debt free. And that's the crazy part is that was all done through, I had a bunch of capital. And then I was selling so much shit that I had so much more capital coming in, and then books were exceeding their value way too quickly. And it was a hyper bubble. So, and I don't expect that to happen again for a while, but now I have a lot of merch and I have a lot more stuff. And obviously I'm shrinking down the business a little bit because I've also learned that businesses have breaking points. As a solo person who runs their business, you do have a breaking point before you can go through an expansion. But again, I would love to be on that show, but I watch that show sometimes and I'm like, you guys really aren't talking about the business of comics. You're talking about Kickstarter and thought process, a little bit on creativity, but like, I don't think most shows talk about business.
Yeah, they have really good talking points, like the questions. Like I would love to answer some of those questions. It's just
what questions would you love to answer? Because it's been a while.
I left my phone in the other room. I can't pull up the videos. Hold on, let me go to YouTube real quick. Indie comics.
I'm really curious because it's been maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but I've also had a crazy. Also, they do it on Sundays, and I'm right now watching a lot of football because I've learned that I have a gambling problem, and I'm really good at picking winning teams. So, I could tell everybody who's going to win on Sunday. The Giants versus the Cowboys. We all know the Cowboys are going to destroy the Giants. This isn't hard. The Cowboys versus the Eagles was a toss-up, but it's going to be a blood freaking fest. And I'm a New York Giants fan, so it's going to be bad.
Oh my God! What I can't find. I'm trying to type it in to pull it up. They got to work on their SEO. I typed in Talking Comics on a Sunday, and I got a video from Perch, a video from Comic Storian, and then like some random channels. Like they're not coming up. Like I'm having to scroll way too much.
I'm trying to see if I could find it.
I'm like, what is like? Because I thought the channel was called Indie Comics Explained, but I'm like, it's not that because it didn't come up for that either. I'm
pulling this up. I'm seeing if I can pull it up. So can indie publishers survive the hard times ahead? Why are we as indie creators doing this? So if you just type in JD Calderon, it'll come up.
Okay.
Is it time to give up on this indie comic business? Is another one. Why do we as indie creators take offense to criticism so easily, and should we? And the answer is yes to that. They have some good questions. But like,
I really like his questions. They're thought-provoking questions. I just feel like they're Indie Comics Network. That's the name of the damn channel. Okay.
I've watched it and like I see them going through a bunch of people's stuff, but like I don't see much actual diversification. Like, and this is not just him. I like JD Rosario, but like I don't see there's much discussion and much analyzing of this. And that's why I created this show in certain ways, is that I think it's a real problem of having a critical analysis. And look, I hate to say this, but I don't think people want to talk about it. I don't.
Well, those are the hard questions. So it's like, not everyone's, no, don't want to answer hard questions. That's a mind crunch, you know? So,
I mean, let's be realistic. Can indie comics survive the hard time ahead of? The answer is yes and no.
I'll say the answer is technically already yes, because if you're saying, if indie comics, if you define indie comics as basically anything besides Marvel and DC, then, like a new story that was made within the past 2 to 5 years, all you gotta do is look at manga and see that they're doing new stories and finding much success. So
I,
it's not
I
that people don't want new stories. It's just they need, like, indie comic creators, as far
where
as like people over in the States.
this is where I challenge that is that
Yeah.
I think to a degree some will find an audience, but some will die. But that's just business in general. Because great, so you have a book. Issue one did 6,000, but it really cost you 6,000 to print it, or you're at a break even point. Then you do issue two, but then you don't make it and it doesn't fund. So great, then you come back and then great, you fund issue two, but it was a struggle and it took you a little while to do it. So I do think that as a whole, yes, they can, but I also think that it is going to be a struggle. I think some are going to die, but guess what happens? Sandwich shops die too, and some make it. So I don't think the question is accurately fair because every indie comic, in my opinion, when you do it on Kickstarter, is a small little business.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally, some are going to make it and some aren't. And most small businesses fail within a year. So if we're going to look at it from that angle, and that's why I think I would have loved to have been on that and said, look, this is my take. The answer is that some are going to do very well and some are just going to fall flat on their face, or they might not make it to issue 2 or 3, or they might end at issue 3 when they had 12 issues planned because of money. And
Right.
I've seen this happen. John Westhoff has a book like that where Deep Howard I thought was going to go on for years and it didn't make it. And it's an unfortunate position where it ended at 3. So that's just how I feel. But, that's how I feel. But again, I would have loved to have been on that show because I think that I didn't think I heard anybody say that on that episode. But I digress. What do I know? I don't know anything because I haven't produced a comic, so maybe I'm all wrong. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. You don't have, like I said, I don't have to run a comic book store to know that there's better ways to run it than the average one that I see. It's like, it's not necessarily like that's like you're into sports. Some athletes will say, well, these analysts have never played the game. Who are they to talk about what we should do and what we're not doing? It's like, just because you didn't play the game doesn't mean you can't be a high level thinker and appreciator of this sport and everything that goes into it, and can analyze it and provide insight and depth. So
I mean, I absolutely. I mean, look, I haven't created a comic book, but I know there's a million ways how to do comics better. I know
yeah,
there's a million ways how to sell a book better. I also understand that I know nothing about printing. So I'm not going to go profess, but there has to be a better way than on-demand printing that's somewhere in between offset. There has to be. There has to be. I could be wrong on it, but there has to be something. But what do I know? Again, I could be wrong on that. But again, I would imagine there has to be a better option. And maybe there isn't. I don't know. But I digress. But I think we covered a lot of stuff. I don't know if we missed anything controversial. We want to talk about religion next?
we kind of did when we talked about the whole advertising with porn. So we basically touched on religion right there as far as our beliefs on it. But
see, it's funny. No. I'm all for porn. Everybody could watch porn as much as you want. I'm all whatever porn you want to watch, as long as you're legal. I'm perfectly fine with whatever porn anybody wants to watch. Free the nipple. It's all good.
And I mean, it's like, hell, if we're talking about what actually defines as porn, because what covers you held up could be porn for somebody, like
I mean, I would make the argument in which I've said this before, and I'm gonna get shit for it. I've said, look, what a bunch of the cosplayers are doing right now with their loot sets, you can make an argument that it is softcore porn, and
Right.
you can make a real argument for it. And you can make a real argument that if there's a nude cosplay cover, you can make an argument that there gets a point where modeling enters softcore porn, and then you can make. I mean, I don't think there are. And look, I mean, I love Jim Noble, but he has a book that you can make an argument that is extremely sexual, and
Mm-hmm.
you can make a real argument that there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody wants to buy that content, I'm all for it. If that's what gets you excited and happy, great. But I consider Jim Noble's book to be a pornographic book. I consider it to be a pornographic book where, and I don't have a problem with it, but it is that. So, I mean, yeah. So, but I mean, I can make an argument that certain things that Jessica Nigeria does could be considered softcore porn. Juliet March is another one. You can make an argument that, and this might be something that people don't want to hear either. I mean, I hate to say it, but like there gets a point where, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that we need to classify things as they are. And I
Right.
think the second we start classifying things what they are, it's great. I mean, I don't know if you know who Juliet March is, but she was a topless model who did softcore porn before doing a lot of cosplay stuff.
Mm.
So you ask why she has like 2 million followers on Instagram. She has 2 million followers, not because she's a good cosplayer, but because of her background before. And then
Yeah.
she converted over into relatively safer material. And why do you think people tune in? I mean, in reality, and that's the other thing that I think we don't evaluate in comics either. But that's just my thoughts. I mean, again, I'm controversial on this, and I have no problem. And I'm sorry that you're going to be canceled because of me.
Nah, they can't cancel me. Only God can cancel me.
That could be arranged.
Yeah. Right.
But I think we covered everything. But I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you? How do you hit you up? All that fun stuff.
All right. Well, if you like me and my antics and my perspectives and just my face, you can check me out on my YouTube channel, Marcel the Loser. On there, I have a podcast of my own, some long form content. If you're an appreciator of Andrew and his work, his long form stuff, you probably would have fun with my long form content. It's called the L7 Weenie Podcast, because I'm Marcel the Loser and I'm an L7 Weenie. L7 Weenie Podcast. I talk to people I know, people I don't know. It's some are comic creators, some are just people, and every person is a universe of just experiences, stories, knowledge, everything that they've been through, you haven't been through. So there's value in all of those conversations. I very much invite you to check them out. And on the channel, I'm starting to do experiment with other content, some in the vein of comic books and some just fun stuff that I've want to do. My channel isn't necessarily a revenue stream at this point. It's more so a creative outlet. And it's all about just having fun and being the best version of myself, my representation of Marcel the Loser on the internet for other people to enjoy, people who enjoy my comic books and want to feel closer to me as a creator. So definitely check that channel out. On that channel, you can also find the videos of my comics that are here on YouTube. So yeah, it's all there for you. Marcel the Loser on YouTube.
And then I'm obviously going to keep saying it. You have to support indie. You have to support mainstream. You have to support what you like. And what that means is that you have to watch people's content, buy their books, go to their website, catch out what they're doing. If they're at a con, you should go support them. Following people on social media is a really big deal. It's really helpful. All that stuff matters. And then as far as I'm concerned, everything that I do, obviously, this is open discussion, but it is on the Pop Anime Comics YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. You can check it out there. Obviously, I have a bunch of stuff on Facebook. On Pop Anime Comics on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook, whether I accept or I don't. That's okay. I also run a Facebook group for free called Indie Comic Connect. Just fill out the form and you will be happily accepted in if you answer all 3 questions. It is a gate-kept community. because I do want people who have podcasts and comics in there, and I don't want other people who want to do other things in there. So answer the questions and you'll be good to go on that front, as well as I have an eBay store, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. Again, guys, if you want one of these in your order something from my eBay store and you will get one of these until I run out. Or better yet, if you want this in hollow foil, I bought all 15 of them. So right now I have all 15 of them. So if you want number 3, I can hook you up with number 3. But it is expensive. It is expensive because I can make it expensive. But I'm willing to negotiate and I'm willing to be reasonable for the first few people on this show. If you mentioned that you heard about that book on this show. So that's all I'm going to say there. And then obviously everything else that I got there. TikTok is Pop Anime Comics. YouTube is Pop Anime Comics. Facebook page is Pop Anime Comics. All that stuff. X/Twitter is Pop Anime Comics. Notice a theme, guys. That's where we're at. And that's everything that I got. So I think I don't know.
But what do I know?
That is true. What do I know? Oh,
I don't know. I was looking at you and I was like, I'm gonna sketch him. I just wanted to.
That's hilarious. Really funny. I think that's hilarious. I think it's funny because I know how to make fun of myself.
Yeah.
Some people don't. It's a real skill to be able to make fun of yourself. But I digress. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for taking the time to further the conversation, create a dialogue, and have a meeting of the minds. Unfortunately, a lot of people met that hot take post in the I Create Comics group with a lot of hostility and just, very dismissive nature. But at the heart of it, I think it was just confusion and basically a fear of challenging beliefs. And it's not easy to invite a challenge of mindsets. And I like I said, I appreciate you, and I'm sure others do appreciate you for welcoming these new ideas, even if you don't necessarily agree with them, but engaging with them to see what value they bring and how they can contribute to the overall goal of creating a better comics industry. So, thank you.
I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.